Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Do Better podcast. This is Dr. Megan,
And this is Joe Smith.
and we are excited to meet with everyone again to discuss different topics in the field of behavior analysis. Today, we don't have a topic chosen, so we're going to go back to spinning our wheel and seeing what topic is chosen for us, which means we've done nothing to prepare, although that's not any different from any most of our other podcasts anyway, but you know.
But you know what? I like the wheel. I like because like some we haven't done it such a long time that it's like nice to, maybe like pull out those like old school you know, topics that we used to do or routines that we used to do. So it's
Yeah.
always good to try something different.
Woo. All right, I'm trying. There we go. It's on full screen. So I'm going to go ahead and spin it. The topics we have are spring cleaning, what want to learn next, emotional regulation, supervision strategies, escape extinction, and first quarter reflections. So let's see what the wheel decides.
All right.
Maybe I don't know how to spin it though. I'm using a new wheel today and I'm trying to spin it and nothing is happening. Hold on. The suspense. Do I have to, how do I spin it?
Do you click on the like little pointer?
I tried that. Okay. I did that. I did that. Um, okay. I did that. I clicked the pointer. Oh my gosh. All right. I'm gonna refresh the page real quick and just see. I need a coffee. Okay. Tap to spin wheel, but that is not my wheel anymore. Hold on. Thankfully, I saved my wheel, so we're good there. Joe, while I'm getting it, oh my gosh, and now it's showing, it's not even showing it there. Well, I'm getting the wheel set up. Do you want to tell our listeners anything you're excited about for um, the conference you're going to this weekend?
Oh yeah. So this weekend is a FABA conference. It starts Friday and Saturday. I'm super stoked for it. This is the first time I'm able to go to a conference since I want to say ABAI, which
Um,
was a while ago for me. Um, it's interesting what happens when you have three kids. Like everything changes.
Yep.
But yeah, it's all good. Like I'm excited. The kids are growing up, but now like since Faba is in my backyard, I'm able to ooh, Megan just built
I got
spun
it.
the wheel.
Spin.
Yeah, I'll let you I'll keep the suspense going for a little bit unless you're watching this video on YouTube, then you know what it is. Anyways, like so Vaba's in my backyard. It's Newport News, which is in the seven cities of Hampton Roads, in Virginia. So I'll be able to like go up there. I'll spend the night just because like for me, like I want to, after the first day of conferences, I want to be able to network with other BCBAs that, do therapeutic consult or even just BCBAs are I used to work with as well. Um, because it's always nice to catch up and get to know what everyone is doing in the field. Um, I'm really looking forward to seeing if there's any BCBAs in our state that are doing something like really unique, like using ABA to um, to work with clients who want to increase their performance in, their sport, increase their health. Like I like that space. I think that's a very interesting space um, to use our science in.
Nice.
Yeah, and like that would be like definitely like an area that I would be interested in growing in and potentially like taking on clients in the future because like that's my jam. I love weightlifting. I love nutrition. Um, but also like I understand like the difficulties of being a dad or being a parent and trying to take care of myself and lose weight, and it's difficult.
Yeah.
So, um, or even just being active. That's the hard part too.
Yep.
Um, so
Well, I
I,
hope you get to connect with people that are focusing on that.
yeah, I am too. I am too. Um, what's our results over wheel?
So the wheel decided that we are going to talk about supervision strategies. And then look at this, I can just click remove and that won't be on there next time.
Nice. I love that. That helps.
Yeah. And the wheel is saved. So, all right,
Nice.
supervision strategies. So I put this on here just it's a thing that I see commonly discussed. So to be honest, I'm not even really doing a whole lot with supervision at this point because that's not my thing, but I obviously stay on top of and in touch with various people are doing. And do you, Joe, you don't really do BACB supervision right now, but with the model that the company and services you're providing, I think you have to provide training and coaching to people, right?
Um, I had to provide coaching to stakeholders who are working with an adult, who are working with the my client. So I'm providing coaching, I'm providing training, uh, and collecting data. So it's really a unique service. It's like it's like working with I I view it as more like parent training, but I call it stakeholder training than actual um like supervision.
Yeah.
Um, it's really unique and really cool service that we have as a therapeutic consult because like your goal, your focus is to give the skills, the tools to the people working with your client, so that the individual is making you know making leaps and bounds with their skills that they need to work on. And so, yeah, I mean, it's different. It's like, yeah, yes, I am not providing supervision to like an RBT anymore. I'm not providing supervision to um, anyone collecting hours to sit on for the exam, but I still have to kind of supervise and observe the stakeholders working um, with my client.
Yeah. So I know that's not completely supervision strategies, but for what you've been doing with that lately, do you have any resources or strategies that you're finding, super helpful?
Um, I have found with working with my stakeholders, one of the biggest um, aspects or strategies that I've been using is the first thing is just meeting where the stakeholder is, because all my stakeholder holders are all they have different skill sets, they have different knowledge and different backgrounds. Some of them don't even they never went to college, they only have a high school diploma. So to them to talk about reinforcement and punishment and negative reinforcement, it's way above where they're at.
Yeah.
So just when I first go in, like really assess to find out like what do they know and where do I need to begin. And sometimes it's the very basics of first of what I do, and then the basics of um, positive reinforcement and
Hmm.
starting there. Or sometimes I have to go back and discuss what is behavior and then go forward from there.
Hmm.
It's just really assessing and knowing where you need to start is the biggest thing. And then from there, it's um, constantly work your way and build up their skill, and by giving like really good feedback to them.
Hmm. I love that. I think sometimes when people think about supervision or coaching and training, there tends to be a kind of like tunnel vision of like, these are all the things I need to teach them and I want them to know. And like, there's a lot of pressure on us to get everything in place for the client and their treatment plan and all of that kind of stuff. But we miss that pretty simple step of, well, where like that we would do with a client. What's the baseline?
Yeah.
Where are they currently performing and how do we, what's the priority in terms of teaching this plan or, whatever strategies need to be put into place and then going systematically from there instead of like overwhelming the person. So that's great that you're doing that. I'm sure they all appreciate you for not trying to
Yeah.
get too far ahead.
And making sure I limit the jargon too. Like, you know, and sometimes I have to be mindful of like, how I'm dressing too, because like if I'm going in with like a suit tie, like to, a person's home and they're like in t-shirt and shorts and like, it completely like sets up just a stage that like I don't like. I rather be um approachable. So I'm mindful of what I'm wearing too.
Yeah.
But I should back up. Like I think the biggest step first to like whenever you go into supervision is you gain some rapport with the person you're working with.
Yep.
And that goes with like any BSBA who's has um someone that they're supervising is like you want to gain not friendship, but you want to gain their respect and then also make them feel valued.
Yeah.
And that would be my biggest tip is before you do anything, make sure that the person that you are working with knows that you value them and
Hmm.
that you care about who they are as an individual.
Yeah.
So
I
like
know
that's
this might seem like a silly question, but again, it's not really something that gets trained very well. Have you found any specific resources helpful for like learning that skill of showing someone that you value them?
um see like I don't have any off the top of my head. I mean, this is based off of my training as an education. I mean, special ed teacher. Like the one of the things that they teach you in your teaching prep courses is to develop a rapport and build in classroom management. And one of the things you need to do is make sure that you have um the rapport of your students and that you find out about them and let them know that you care about them. That's why you got in teaching. You care about wanting to help and teach and you're teaching kids. So like the biggest thing there is like always, you're thinking like, how can I reach to the student? How can I reach this individual? And I think in our coursework, that kind of like gets missed because we don't talk much about how can I, develop this rapport with this client, like, or even his parents. Like, how do I get them to like get that rapport to like work with them effectively and build that strong relationship.
Yeah.
I
It's so
mean,
fascinating to me. Like, again, that's kind of where everything should start, but we don't
yeah,
really get a whole lot of training on it. And I think like one of the things that, without even having to like purchase any books or find a mentor or something, is to just think about your own experience.
yeah.
What are situations where I have felt valued, or what are situations where I was like motivated to do what the person was teaching me, and like what characteristics were present in those situations, and how can I emulate that? You
Mm,
know, having that reflection, I think is really helpful. We've done a couple of webinars recently for Do Better. Both were actually led by people from Centria because they have a big focus on reflective leadership. So we had one with Adrian Bradley in the fall. And then
okay.
in December, Ed Santabria did a presentation, but they were both on reflective leadership, but like different aspects of it. And I really loved the like step-by-step process that they were going through in that. And I think we're going to see more and more that people, when they're thinking about supervision strategies, they're looking at that bigger picture first of how do you be a good leader? How do you build rapport with people? Like, what does that relationship piece of it look like? And then we can get into, okay, how are you going to track the skills and, do the actual like behavior analytics specific stuff. But if we're not starting with that bigger picture, like you were saying, if we don't build that rapport first, whether we're supervising or coaching or training someone, we're not really going to get as far unless the person's just naturally motivated, but it's not going to be because of anything we're doing at that point, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. And then so like that brings up the point that, for resources to like talk about rapport building and um getting to just like have a better relationship with your supervisees. Like I think one of the best books out there is Bringing Out the Best in People by Daniel Carnegie.
Mhm.
Um, he- and any of his leadership books are amazing to read through.
Yeah.
Do you have any other books or resources you have come across, like as far as like leadership building or like,
Not like, I mean, I know a lot of people like Brene Brown, and there's certain folks that if I'm sure if we typed it into Google right now, I'd be like, oh yeah, that person. But I personally haven't like read or consumed anything by folks. Generally, I feel like when I've done supervision, I people like came to me for like the unique knowledge that I had. So I was fortunate in not having to do a lot of extra work on top of like, building. It's not like they were coming to me. It wasn't like I was just assigned to them and they had to like learn from me, if that makes sense. So my supervision job hasn't been as difficult as I know many people experience, but when I've trained people and taught people, the resources by Denny Reed and Parsons. They have a couple of different one on like motivating human services staff, like that topic area, and those are really helpful, very OBM focused. So I find those to be really beneficial, especially if you're just getting started and you haven't received any specific training. And they talk about a lot of what you were mentioning with like relationship building, and they're pretty tiny books. They're not that long and they're just to the point and like this is what you need you need to do. And then of course there's behavior analytics specific books like the newer one with Dr. LeBlanc and Tyra Sellers on more focused on like mentorship, right? And how to be a good mentor. And then, of course, I don't ever remember the specific names, but I'm sure people know what I'm talking about. Um, I think that one's really beneficial. Anything by Dr. Kazemi on supervision. And now she's starting to talk more about training being more interactive and how, as technology is getting more advanced, our training practices need to improve as well. I have not had a chance to watch her presentation on that yet, but she presented on it at APBA. So I'm hoping to get in there and watch it before. I don't even know if it expires, but I have access because I went to APBA. I just haven't had a chance to watch it yet.
and that brings up a good point. Okay, so first I need to do a correction because I messed up. So it's not Dana Carnegie, it's Aubrey Daniels who wrote.
Well, so yeah, Aubrey Daniels wrote Bringing Out the Best in People, but Carnegie is the How to Win Friends and Influence
Yeah,
People, which
thank you.
is, I think, the inspiration for a lot of Aubrey Daniels' work too. So,
Yeah,
but yes, thank you for correcting that.
because
I didn't even notice when you said it. I was just like, yeah, because in my head you said how to win friends and influence people. I don't know why.
no, it's fine. Like I totally blanked out. I just like I was like, wait, that doesn't make sense. So let me go back. Yes. Now, and then there's just going back on supervision. I will say I do own this book and I love it. I just haven't been able to utilize it as much just because I don't have any supervisees right now. the ABA Supervision Handbook.
Yeah.
I absolutely love how that's broken down, and it reminds me so much of AFOLs, how it's broken down into skills.
Yeah, and I love that they have the task list, but they have things outside of the task list too, like what we were talking about. They have topics focused on, cultural humility and soft skills that aren't necessarily included in the coursework or the supervision expectations, but they've put it into their curriculum and
Yeah.
that, has measurements and competency piece to it, which is wonderful.
Yes, absolutely. And that's one that I would highly recommend if you're going to take on supervisees to have and to go through together because
Yeah.
it gives you that framework.
Hmm. Yeah. And then I don't know, like bigger strategies, I'll just kind of mention. I talk about this in our webinar about supervision that's called Are You an Analyst or an Interventionist? I can't remember which is first. I think it's in that order. But I talk about different supervision styles and how to encourage the most effective style of supervision. So I'm not going to talk about the ineffective ones, but I think sometimes people have a tendency to either do too much or not do enough. So it's like finding that balance of helping the person learn the skill. So you're modeling it and doing it with them, and then releasing them for the opportunity to try it for themselves. And I
Yeah.
think far too often supervisors either just expect people to do it. Well, this is part of your supervision. Like, show me what you got, or they like just kind of do everything and model the whole time, and then the person finishes their field work and they're like, I never actually did anything. So I like to follow the I do, we do, you do direct instruction model, where I'm going to model it, we're going to do it together, and then on the third time, no, unless they're like bombing big time, like by the
Yeah.
third time, you are going to try it by yourself, because the only way to truly give you the best feedback is to see, what happens when you try it by yourself. But obviously, there's exceptions to that depending on like safety of the client and stuff like that. But I put that out there from the beginning, like, hey, this is how we're going to do it, so that the supervisee knows going into it that they'll get to see me do it, we'll do it together, and then they're going to try it on their own. Because a lot of times too, for the supervisee, there's that, oh my gosh, I don't think I can do it feeling, and they might resist. So if they know ahead of time, like, well, this is our process and I'll, be here to support you the whole way, that makes it a lot easier as well.
Yep. And then also, back to that, building that rapport, finding out like how your supervisee, mm, rather you handle supervision. So like if you're in middle of session, what does your supervisee want you to jump in, or would do they rather you hang back and then just give you feedback later on? Like it some I mean, I have had supervisees I work with, they're like, I like if I'm doing something wrong, like jump in and let and just do it. Others are more like, no, just give me the feedback later. Because during the session, it just makes me more confused
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Um, and that's the biggest thing. You're going in. I mean, this is something that you got. I view it as I'm working with you. Yes, I'm the supervisor. I'm ultimately in charge, but like we're a partnership. We're working together. Let's make sure that we're collaborating together on this
Yeah.
because nothing's going to get out. I mean, you're not going to get anything out of it if I'm just controlling the whole situation.
Exactly. Yeah. I
Yeah.
can't remember if the ABA handbook talks about any of that kind of stuff, like how to, sort of set your supervisee up for success and have, get their preferences. Do you remember if
No,
there's anything in there?
I don't remember anything in there about that. And I think that's like a bunch of those soft skills that we lose
Right.
that's not in the handbook.
Yeah.
Um, if there's anyone that does have the handbook and, they're knee deep in it and we say something different, let us know.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure like my, times in the book, like I can't remember any of those soft skills being in there.
Yeah.
And and to be honest, like there's so many different ways of going about it. Because like part of it as being a supervisor, you are, I mean, like you're also like this kind of behavior artist who gets to teach according like how you teach best
Yeah.
while taking in consideration of the supervisees like learning styles. That would be a good resource is to figure out like what kind of learning styles a supervisee has. Like, are they more of a kinesthetic learner? Are they more like a vocal? I mean, uh, are
Visual,
they yeah, visual, like,
auditory. Yeah.
yeah,
I know
that's
it's
all.
so interesting because, there's people in our field that would say like that doesn't exist. But like we all know we have our ways. Like when in terms of conveying information, I do much better telling people about stuff than trying to write about it.
Oh, yeah.
um and then like learning, honestly, if something's more kinesthetic in nature, you can forget it. I will die. Like I'm not going to do well with it. The whole time I'll be like, how do I tell my body to do this thing? Like it does not make it more salient for me. But then I know plenty of people where it's like when they can, physically are manipulating and maneuvering things, it sticks so much better for them. So whatever learning history creates that, if it's a preference, like whatever, but it's not a fictional thing. Like these are real. And to assume that, we can just teach any way we want to and the person's going to learn. That's not what we do with our clients. Why would we think that's what we need to do with adults? And that's the other thing that kind of fascinates me about supervision. There's so much research in not necessarily behavior analysis, but just in adult learning, where they've published on effective teaching for adults and effective coaching and training and what works best. And I'm really curious to know why we don't really incorporate much of that in, like, we're supposed to use effective supervision practices.
Yep.
And we know BST is effective, but beyond that, like there's not a whole lot of focus on like staying on top of the literature around adult coaching, like motivational interviewing, the trans-theoretical model of change. Um, there's what's the other one that I talk about now? I can't think of it. I don't know. There's other things that have like a ton of research and are used by like big corporations and different companies. Like I think Paul Giovanni talks about it in a lot of his stuff. But when I did worked with Autism Navigator, they had a big focus on it too. And it's just fascinating to me that like more people in our field aren't pulling in that information.
Yeah. I mean, it's also a matter of like, where, like, if it's not smack in our face, like, we're not pulling that in. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like there's so much out there. And like, sometimes we have blinders on and we are so focused on day to day what's going on. Like, um, that we lose sight of like what other fields are doing, or, what other things could we bring in. Um, But that's where like I strongly feel like if you're in this field, like you should be reading literature, but also like read other books from other authors, like anything on leadership, anything on um, relationship building. Um, Read other literature from other practices. Social work is always a good one.
Yeah.
So, and then building that time in. That's the hardest thing is building that time in to actually like read and um, make sure that you're accessing that material.
Yeah.
So,
Did you ever do any group supervision as a supervisor?
uh, as a supervisor, no. As a supervisor, yeah, we did a group supervision. Uh, More, it was more of a meeting for us to all come together, talk about, you know, bigger topics, general topics. But never did I do it as a supervisor.
Yeah. because that's like a whole separate, strategy thing. But I think like when we think about time, that's what made it come up for me.
Yep.
Sometimes I see people only doing one-on-one supervision and they have multiple supervisees and they're like, well, they're not going to get their hours in if but it's like, there's part of me, obviously, I don't want to burn people out or anything, but if you can identify, maybe you do it quarterly, maybe you do it biannually or annually, but taking a poll, finding out there's likely to always be some specific time that a group of the supervisees could come together, even if it's just once a month, but that helps, cut down. Because like sometimes I just remember I felt like I was just having the same conversations each
Yeah.
one-on-one session. And I was like, geez, why do I have to keep repeating myself? So having a space to have those, like you said, bigger conversations and then uniquely apply it to each client and talk about in the one-on-one sessions, I think is also a good way. I know logistically it doesn't always work out, but if you can create that space and encourage the supervisees to participate. Also, the group supervision, I think, is really helpful because it gives more models at one time of, some people only have two or three clients. And in the group supervision, you're not going to reveal any confidential info, but it does give an opportunity to see the principles and practices applied in different ways than what you're experiencing.
Exactly. And yeah, and you'll all meet together and I'll learn from different aspects too, you know. And maybe someone thinks, I mean, like brings up a idea that's different than yours, and you take that point home and like, oh, I could use this.
Yeah.
So because I mean, like I could use like I love talking with other people and problem solving together because like if it's just me, sometimes I get in a rut and I can't think outside the box because it's just me. I'm the
Yeah.
only one brain.
Or if you're too close to it, like you see the person every day, but then you describe it out loud, and multiple people might be like, oh, have you thought about this or that or this thing? And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
no, I didn't. And of course, sometimes that creates maybe a little bit of defensiveness or like, oh, I'm such an idiot or something type thoughts, but it's not. It's just different context when you're seeing someone very often and you have your learning history and experience with them, your brain and like thoughts are going to go one way. But then
Mm.
having other people say stuff, some of it, and then it also helps with like, as the person learning, being able to differentiate like that suggestion actually wouldn't work with my client because of X, or oh, that is a good suggestion. I hadn't thought of that. Thanks for, helping me out.
Yeah.
So it helps with that too.
Yeah. And it's just another way for the team to come together, work together, and you build that teamwork kind of collaboration together.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I'm all about teamwork. I like teamwork.
For sure. Well, that's kind of all that's coming up for me in terms of like the big picture items. It would have been fun. I don't know. Someday we're going to get back on Facebook Live and then people can chime in. This is a good one that I think it would have been nice to hear from folks live that, what are they using? But if
Yeah.
you're listening and you want to comment, we'd love to, hear from folks. Like, what are some of your favorite or least favorite supervision strategies or resources that you're using?
Yep. And then no specific names, no specific like situations, just in general.
Yes. Yep. Yep. All right, Joe, you want to close us out?
All right, guys. Thank you for joining Do Better Pod. And signing out, I want you to go out and do better and have a great week.